All right, so we are live. And hey, everyone, this is Carlos again for another Evolve Talks here. And today I have the pleasure to be joined by Eric Melchor, who's American, North American, and is based out of Romania. So, Eric, you're the founder of Innovators Can Laugh, and we came across each other on LinkedIn. You're someone that I look up to. You believe in content. So before we get started, maybe you can start with a dad joke, like like you always start, and then we get at it.
Okay. How does the moon cut his hair?
How does the moon cut its hair?
Yeah, he eclipsed it. You get it? Eclipse, right?
Terrible, man. Good one.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
so that's how you usually start. You strike up a conversation on LinkedIn, right? That's
yeah. That's my superpower. Like any new connection, I try to send them just like, hey, thanks for connecting. By the way, question for you. And I'll usually insert like a dad joke in there. And at the end of the message, in a very subtle way, I kind of share with them what I do. And
Mhm.
then I sign off. So it's like, hey, nice to connect. Here's a joke for you. Hopefully they laugh. And then I let them know what I do. And I send that to probably 90% of the people I connect with. And Carlos, 98% of the people appreciate it. Lots of
Mhm.
people actually respond with a joke of their own. And I get a lot of jokes back. And it's really funny. And every now and then you'll get those one or two people that are like, what is this? Or this is a
Mhm.
really strange message. But I like
It
it.
is, but it's
Yeah.
cool.
Y- But it's almost like a filter for me because I kind of pre-qualify who I know I'm going to enjoy working with,
Mhm.
or if they're in a city that I frequent, then if they respond like, oh, this made my day, because a lot of people do say that, oh my God, this was such a good message, it made me laugh, or it's nice to receive a message like this. I make a note of those people, and whenever I host like an in-person cocktail party, I go back and I look at that list because I know that they responded favorably to my initial message, and I know that we'll just get along. So I make a note of those people, and usually try to meet those people in person whenever there's an opportunity to.
That's brilliant, man. The first time I got your message, I thought it was odd, different, but it was fun as well. And so I don't remember what the joke was about, but it just built a bond. And LinkedIn is so powerful, as we both know, because we had some sort of interaction. Then I started following your content. Then we had our first call. I think about, I don't know if it's even a year ago or even less, but we somehow are in the same circle of people. Like, I know you know Laura from Dream Data,
Yeah.
and it's interesting, right? It's such a powerful tool because we're in the same kind of like ecosystem, if you like. And
Yep.
then I start seeing you, popping on my feed, and your face becomes more familiar. So that's really really interesting, and I gotta say you master the art of relationship building in that sense. So
Well, you have too. I met some people 2 weeks ago at a conference. It was an e-commerce conference here in Bucharest. It was the Easy Sales e-commerce talks, and there was a guy from Paris. And I don't know what we were talking about, but somehow your name came up, and he was like, "Yeah, I know Carlos," and I was like, "Yeah, I know Carlos too." So you're pretty well known in the industry, my friend. So that's
uh,
always a good sign when you meet a stranger and somehow there's a mutual acquaintance, and it ends up being somebody who you know and like. So you're doing a good job at that too.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Eric, let's talk about your life and in your career. So you come from the US, if I recall well. You're from Dallas, Texas. Is that correct?
Oh man, no. I thought we were friends, man. I'm from Houston. Yeah, we're
Houston. I'm
we're
so sorry, man. Yeah,
yeah.
it was a long time ago, but it's always good to make a mistake so you can correct me and then you give me the right story.
Yeah, well, Houston and Dallas are probably like Sao Paulo and Rio, right? They're probably
Yeah.
like enemies, you know. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
there's always competing. So yeah, that was like a little stab in the heart, but I'll forgive you, man. Yeah, so I'm from Houston, But in 2010, was it 2010? I moved to Bucharest for a year.
Mhm.
Ended up meeting a beautiful young woman, convinced her to move to the States. I told her that Houston is this very cosmopolitan city and it was like Europe. And luckily, she believed it. You know, I was lying through my ass, but she came over and we ended up getting married. And we were in Houston for about 10 years. I was working in the energy industry and the solar and energy, retail energy space. I had director level roles when it came to marketing at Fortune 500 companies. Was doing what I always wanted to do in the
Mhm.
marketing world, and I had always been fascinated with tech, especially startups. And then in 2020, COVID came, and we had just had our daughter, and our son was only 2 at the time. And we're trying to juggle raising 2 little kids, a baby and a 2-year-old, while trying to work. And it was just chaos. And it was a very difficult time. And her mom made the suggestion that, why don't you guys come move over here? I can help out with the kids. And we kind of laughed at first, but we started thinking about it like, okay, well, could we do it? You know, could we work remote? And, you know, what are the pros and cons? And we listed the pros and cons. And there were so many pros, Carlos. I mean, the weather. You know, Houston is very hot and humid. Bucharest has 4 seasons. The ability
Mhm.
to travel to different places. We can be in the sea and the mountains like in 2.5 hours. You know, cost of living much cheaper here, right?
Mhm.
So there was a lot of pros, and we decided, what the hell? You know, if we can get our house listed and rent it out, then that's the big hurdle. And within one day, I kid you not, we listed our home for rent back in Houston. And on that same day, we got 10 offers. Some people even offered to pay us more than what we listed. And we thought that was going to be the biggest hurdle. And it was quite easy. And I think within 4 months, we had made the move over here. And that was 3 years ago. So I transferred, you know, new place. Well, you know, coming back to Bucharest, it had been 13 years, but try to break into a new industry with 2 young kids. And so far, there's been a lot of ups and downs, but I've just been very positive and continue to build relationships, and I think it's worked out. And I think as long as you got your health and you know you've got good flexibility in your life, there's always going to be ups and downs. But if you keep trying to move forward, then good things will happen.
That's amazing. I really what what I what I really liked the first time we spoke is the fact that you're an international like myself, and I'd love to to explore a bit of that because there are many ups and downs when we live abroad. So I've been in Denmark now for a decade, and then I told you like I divorced, and on top of that, I mean, when you divorce, things change a lot, right?
I bet. I bet.
In another country, so it was difficult, but really like there are so many differences between Danish society and Brazilian society. I love Denmark. I love Brazil. I feel weird when I go back to Brazil in some ways, but I don't consider myself a Danish person or European for that matter. But I'm not entirely Brazilian anymore.
Yeah.
Like, and I think all internationals they go through that process, right?
Yeah.
And you being someone from the US in Romania, I mean, Romania has a Latin culture. I've been there 17 times, so I get it. Like, oh, from 2017 to
Yeah. Yeah.
2018, 17 times. I have more Romanian friends than I have Danish friends, which is weird, but like I get, and they use Facebook a lot or Messenger, like, right? So they're
Yeah.
all the time, hey man, how are you doing? And so on. It is a culture that reminds a bit of Brazil. And for you, I'm curious about the adaptation process. Probably with they're very family orientated, loud, like Italians, Brazilians, and in the US. Tell me a little bit about that. How it
Yeah.
was you guys.
Yeah, the family definitely very tight knit, very close to each other. I mean, my wife can talk to her sister every day on the phone for like an hour, even with her mom. I think it's more of a regional thing because I've heard other nationalities like in Greece and other countries nearby they can do the same thing. But yeah, they're very very tight. They love meat and pork. I think they're one of the
Mhm.
highest consumptions of pork. So like during Christmas, I swear to God, man, 3 days straight, you'll see nothing but like pork and sausages. And it's just
Yeah.
there's no vegetables, man. I mean, the only vegetable there is like potatoes, and that's like for 3 days in a row. So I'm pretty sure they're not high on the lifespan because there's just so much cholesterol.
Uh-huh.
They're not not very good diet. But it's good. The food's good, and I would say they don't really talk with their hands like Italians,
Mhm.
but they are Latin, and it's very very weird because they're like an island of Latins among the other countries that have nothing to do with Latin. They're so it is different in that aspect. I think they're very hardworking. I think they're the most
Yes.
hardworking of all European countries. I think I saw
Hmm.
somewhere that they work more hours than any other European nation, or in the top three. And
Hmm.
so I moved to the wrong country because I was wanting some more work life balance, but Romanians work just as hard as Americans do, and
Hmm.
so that was different. But the biggest culture shock for me, Carlos, I don't know about for you, was vacation. How
Hmm.
much vacation, how important it is. And I think this is for most Europeans
Yes, for
because
sure.
in the States, you know, yeah, there's maybe 2 weeks of vacation. But
Hmm.
when people go on vacation in the States, we're still working. We still
Hmm.
have our laptop, we're still checking email. There's no such thing as going on vacation for 2 or even 3 weeks. And
Hmm.
here, that is just the custom. And when people go on vacation here, they don't work. And so that's still mind-boggling to me.
Hmm.
And that's the biggest culture shock that I see. Whereas here, it's more as you work to live, whereas in the States, you live to work. Has that been the same for you, moving from Denmark,
Oh,
from Brazil to Denmark?
totally. And I mean, the thing is, when I moved here, I've had only two internships in Brazil, so I had to build my professional career here. But my parents are entrepreneurs in the Brazilian style, so I was brought up seeing them work all the time. And
Yeah.
here they do have this work-life balance belief, really. And so for me, it's still hard, to be honest. I never really stop in a way, but they do that, and summer holidays, like they have their proper summer holidays. I think it's 6 weeks of paid vacation here that they can just compare it to the
That's like an
US.
eternity for me, man.
Yeah, you know. But I really appreciate that side of society, and people respect you if you want to take a time off. It's not that people are kind of like um, giving you the eye kind of thing, like so
Yeah.
it's yeah. Those matters are well settled here. I'd say, like there's no discussion. They respect rest and all of that. So that I think those aspects are very interesting. Like when we compare uh, like our worlds, the US and Brazil and
Yeah.
Europe in that sense, right?
Yeah, the other thing I appreciate is that they have multiple political parties, and I don't want to get into a political this discussion.
Hmm.
But whereas the U.S. it's just the left or the right, here there's
Right.
four main parties. I really appreciate that
Hmm.
because it's not very different. Whereas in the States it's very divided. Here it's not so much divided because of the political parties, and I definitely appreciate that. In Denmark, I imagine the same thing. Probably three, four, or five
Yeah,
political parties.
multiple. Many,
Yeah,
many. Yeah. And what it's interesting for me is like when you discuss political matters with, I mean, people are so intelligent, in my opinion, about the world. They follow what's going on. Like my friends at the squash club or whatever, they are super politicized, if you like. Like they can discuss what's happening in the US, in Brazil, or they have multiple inputs, in general, if you know what I mean,
yeah.
and they can express an opinion. Whereas in Brazil, well, not necessarily. That's not necessarily true. And I mean, yeah, I cannot say that is true for the whole country, but just yeah, don't
Well, the
know
same
what's
in the
your
States. I mean, some
yeah,
people just get their media and their news from, one or
exactly.
two sources, and they
Mhm.
believe everything that is filtered through those media, whether it be Facebook or maybe a specific news channel. and because of that, they're reluctant to change their mind or hear an opposing view, and it's
Mhm.
very frustrating. So that's a good thing to see over there in Denmark, that people are not as much like not like that, like Americans, that it's either one side or the other side. That seems like everybody can is sort of in the middle and is open to hearing ideas from multiple sides.
Yeah, correct. I think I wouldn't even say that in Denmark it's not that they, let's say, tilt to one side or another, but it's more like that. There's a very interesting book by what's the name of the guy? Ray Dalio, and he talks about how civic, they measure how civilized you are in a let's say in a country, and then because your country is more civilized in that sense, civic, I think that's the word, the correct word in English. Then he makes a correlation about that and how and the level of wealth and evolution that your country has. So here, even though you may have opposing views, like people are more open to discussing hard, matters, and I find that really, really interesting. Like there is a certain respect, so they listen to you, and that's something very different for me. Like in Denmark, when you're talking to them, they are so intense. They're like, they're looking in your eye, and I mean, in the beginning, it was like, what's going on? Like, so that's just really interesting
Yeah,
in the society. I really appreciate it.
yeah. Are you riding around on a bicycle over there? Because aren't they big bicyclists as well?
Oh, yes, all the time. This is a bicycle country here.
Yeah.
It's not so much. It's not so much in Romania, right?
Heck no. I think you get run over if there's some brave people who ride bicycles, but I think Bucharest is the worst in terms of European capitals for traffic and
And
congestion.
traffic is just insane there. It's
And the
just
way
like,
people drive, man, if you can drive here, I think you can drive anywhere.
oh,
That's
yeah.
why I don't drive during the week. I optimize my lifestyle so that I don't have to drive. I can walk my kids to school, walk them to the park, and if I had to drive during the week, I wouldn't live here. It's just chaos.
Yeah, there's one last thing about Bucharest, and something that I never understood is like when people park their cars, like they put the wheel on top of the Porsche, isn't it, the sidewalk, and you're just like, why? you know, is there an explanation?
Romanians haven't met a piece of concrete or a piece of land that they can't turn into a parking space.
Hmm.
Yeah, anywhere that they can park, they will park. I the very first year that I lived here, every week I was coming home and I was telling my wife, "You won't believe I saw the parking that I saw today." And I would actually take a pen and a paper and try to
Hmm.
like reconstruct it so she could get an idea what I was talking about. But then after like 6 months, I'm like, I'm never going to see anything that's going to outdo that one. And sure enough, a week later, I would see like this crazy parking that somebody did. It's just so funny and there's the thing is, it's normal. It's normal. I
Yeah.
had somebody drop me off, and at the international airport, they literally parked the car, and we're going to go inside with me into the airport. And I go, "What are you doing?" And
Mhm.
and they were like, "Well, I'm going to go in there with you to make sure you check in." Okay, I'm like, "This is an international airport. You can't just leave your car right there on the curb." And they're like, "Well, why not?" I just like so they grow up that way. They think there's nothing
Uh-huh.
wrong with it, and
Yeah, yeah,
that's how they grew up. So I think whereas me and you and other foreigners, we see like what the hell's going on? To them, this is normal. Yeah,
yeah.
it's crazy. It's quite
Uh,
crazy.
very cool, man. All right, let's talk about your life. And so you have arrived in Romania. You're a creator, and one of the questions that I asked you on my email is like about the role of being a creator today. I think we're both passionate about content. We understand that, and so tell me, what do you create? What's what? Tell me about your journey as being a creator. Because there's
Yep.
this aspect. So you worked um, in a traditional industry for many years in the US. Then you moved to Romania, needed to
Yep.
find like a way to make ends meet, right? And so tell us about this journey and how you
Yeah.
started
Yeah.
being a creator. And yeah.
Yeah, man. I've been a creator before the term creator was cool. I mean, back in like 2011, 2012, even though I had a full-time job. On the side, I had this blog called MakeHoustonGreat.com. And I was interviewing like Houston politicians and Houston sports athletes and just, famous people in Houston just for fun. It was just like a side hobby. And then, for fun, I taught as an adjunct professor at a university. I did Toastmasters and was competing in Toastmaster competitions. And then I launched a nonprofit for a kids' health program on the side too. This is, I'm working full time. I'm doing these different things. And I never really considered myself a creator on the side. It was just, hey, you can't express your creativity and imagination when you work for a corporation. If you can, maybe you're lucky to express 20, maybe 30% of your creativity. But when you do something on the side that's your own, then you can express 100% of your creativity, and that's what I've always been looking for to express my imagination, the crazy ideas that I've had in my head, and that's why I've always done these things on the side. And then when I moved to Romania, I was trying to get a job in tech. I didn't know anybody, and I didn't really have a network here. And so somebody suggested I was leading this meeting, and there was a lot of different foreigners, people from Turkey, from China, Romania. I think there was somebody from Hungary, and then you have me, the American there. And I was doing a pretty fun job of getting everybody to talk and laugh. I think I would start the meetings by asking people these strange questions like, "Hey, what's a dish that in your country that you don't like, but your spouse or your mom or your relative tries to get you to eat it, all the time?" And we were just laughing about that and sharing pictures. And somebody suggested, "Hey, you should start a podcast where you interview foreigners." And it
Mhm.
stuck with me. And I thought, why not? I'm in the startup in space now. I can interview
Mhm.
startup founders from different countries here in Europe. And so that's how I got the idea. And I kicked off the podcast. And now we're 3 years into it, and it's really opened up a lot of doors, a lot of connections. Two of my projects that I've gotten for work has become people found me through the podcast or on LinkedIn. And so simultaneously, I started posting more on LinkedIn, talking about the podcast, highlighting the interviews and the guests that I interviewed, and then just started talking about what I was doing from a work standpoint. And that has opened up new relationships and a lot of new connections. And as you start to form relationships with those people. You feel like you know them. You've gotten to know them because there's this repeat exposure. Sometimes you do a Zoom call, and that even strengthens the relationship even more. Sometimes you meet them in person. And
Mhm.
so anybody who comes on my show, they pay a price, and that price is that not only am I going to do my best to help you reach a new audience, but I consider you a friend. And so if I
Mhm.
see you, if I go to your city, I'm gonna like, hey, I'm coming to your town, man. Let's hang out. Let's go do something. Or if you're coming to my town, let's hang out. Let's do something. And so, it's opened up a lot of doors, and the creator aspect. I guess you could say I'm going full time now, and I
Mhm.
started going full time 2 months ago. And I'm going to try to generate revenue through multiple sources because I think that's what you need to try to do if you're becoming a creator. Obviously, you can do consulting. That's how I make the most of my money. I'm still sort of like this B2B growth marketing consultant, and I've got a few clients that I work with. But I'm also getting money now through sponsorships for the podcast.
Mhm.
And then I'm trying to, I'm not trying, I am. I launch a B2B podcast ad network. And so if there's any brands that are trying to reach people like tech founders or B2B marketers in the SaaS space in the States or in the US, in the States or Europe, they can work with me and do podcast advertising, not just on my podcast, but other B2B podcasts as well under the Innovators Can Laugh B2B podcast umbrella. So, I've got all these different things going on. I'm excited about it. I get a chance to, like I said, I think 80, 90% of what I do every day, I love it. I enjoy connecting with other people, building relationships, interviewing, hearing stories, and trying to help other people, whether it's, grow their reach or grow their awareness or generate, a new source of revenue for them. That's something that I enjoy doing, helping others out. So I'm having a pretty good time. very different lifestyle than I had back in Texas, but I can say that I'm enjoying it. I'm having a lot of fun, and it definitely helps out with the flexibility aspect because my number one my number one goal is to be a really good father, and so doing this, going this route, it prevents me from having to do late night calls and late night meetings, with people in the U.S. because I did that for a while the first 2 years that I was here, and so I was constantly busy from like 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. at night, and after a couple of years, it's like no, I what's really important to me is to be there for my kids and help them, raise them the way I want to, and so being a creator is allowing me to do that.
Lovely, man. I love that aspect of what you said. Being a good father, it's also important. It's something that I strive to do. So that's very, very important. I would still like to pick your brain on being a creator, and I think, as we know, you said as you know, but as we know, we get it. We get the value of relationship building, right? I mean, and I post constantly about why people are the best distribution channel you can have, right? And it's like, so if I interview someone, to me it's very obvious that you're connected to my next connection and the next connection, and you're going to be very happy sharing the content that we created together because you feel good, and it's like a stage that we created for you, and that's so obvious. But I still find it hard, like when I talk to leaders and CMOs and whatnot, and they don't get it, man. And sometimes I'm just like, man, you're full of crap. Like I don't know how in the world you have this position. Just companies raise a bunch of money, but there's someone who's not. It's just not content, but it's okay. We create content, but distribution and everything else that you need to do in terms of that and the relationships you build. So.
Yeah, well, there's 2 points of view. I think first, from the point of view of if you're like a solopreneur or you're entrepreneurial but you work for a company, the benefit of being a creator is, and this is true. Back in 2020, people used to say, companies used to say, "Can you send me your CV? Send me your resume." 2023, it's the reverse. It's companies saying, "Hey, I saw the work that you're doing. I saw your post. I saw your content. I want to chat with you. Are you open, to chatting?" That's the difference, and that's happened in my life. I mean, Carlos, I would be prepared for an interview, bring a portfolio, have a 90-day roadmap. Just be prepared as much as I could going into an interview. My past 2 jobs, my past 2 projects, clients are people that reached out to me and said, "Hey, I saw what you were doing on LinkedIn, and I want to chat with you because we have an interest in working with you. Is that are you open to chatting?" Did not have to submit a resume, did not have to do a formal interview. So that's the power of building up your personal brand and sharing what you do. And that's from the point of view as like an employee or a solopreneur. The other point of view is if you're an owner, if you're a founder, if you lead a company, you may think, okay, I don't really need to do that because I'm happy where I am. But here's the thing. If you go and share what you do, if you talk about what you're going through with your job, or, share information about the new products you're launching or your team, or just anything in general, the more consistent you are about that, the more willingness to expose your personality. In essence, you're recruiting because people are becoming aware of who you are, of what your company does, and they may be thinking, God, I would like to work for this person. And so you're actually recruiting and you don't even know that you are. But there's a lot of people that see your content and think, hey, I would like to work for this person. So when the time comes that you say, hey, we've got this new position and we're looking for somebody who can do X, Y, Z, there's going to be a lot of people who know who you are, know what you stand for, know what your brand's about, and may reach out to you and say, hey, I've been following you for quite some time now. I enjoyed seeing this post about this or learning more about you. Yeah, I'm interested in that position. And so it definitely it definitely saves you a lot of time and a lot of energy from that standpoint. I think there's a lot of other point of views and a lot of other benefits of building your personal brand, but those are the first two that I think of, for why you should do it, is because now a CV and a resume, I don't think it's enough. I think if you're just bringing that to the battle versus somebody who's been creating content and also has a resume, I think you're going to lose. And then two, if you're an employer, if you're a founder and you're trying to recruit the best talent as possible, and hey, I think Steve Jobs said this, as an entrepreneur, as a founder, your number one job is recruiting the best talent possible. Then
Mhm.
yes, you need to get out there and start sharing your personal brand, sharing your story, because that gives you an opportunity to recruit the best talent versus an employer who hasn't done nothing online, who hasn't done nothing on social media, and is simply paying for a job posting online, and nobody knows anything about that company and what they stand for.
Yeah, that's right. But then the question is, because in my 10 years in Denmark, I had this company called Viasa. I'm not sure if you remember the first time we spoke. And I ran this business. It started out of a blog. And then in 2018, a massive major e-com platform wanted to incorporate us into their business because we were having the success with everything we were doing in Romania with the go-to-market strategy, always content first and so on. Then I divorced. I always say 2019 was the COVID year for me, my personal COVID, divorce, quit the business I started. And then I got hired by, I needed a job, some stability in my life. And then I got hired by an e-com platform from Denmark. And the guy said, it's fine. You can you can use your content to open up the Dutch market. And it was working. It was working. 3 months in, they start getting itchy. They're not very satisfied because I appear too much, and so that's, I think, a challenge that a lot of people who want to build their brands and reputation, they go through, right, in businesses and companies, because even though the person wants, they're typically working for a company that, or not a company, but decision makers that not necessarily are very supportive of that, maybe with them having a side project or appearing too much on LinkedIn. So, and I see companies like Dream Data, they are brilliant. I mean, they do an amazing job, or Gong, but Dream Data, it's people that we know, like Laura and the team there. I even went to their event 3 weeks ago. Saw the ladies also in the UK. Brilliant work that they do on LinkedIn and social selling. They live it, and they're very relaxed about it. So the question I have for you is, what's your take? Because I have my take, I say, just leave the company. If it's not so black and white, but if you have the opportunity, because you're going to have a strong brand and you're going to be visible, and they don't accept what you do, just leave it. That's what I did. But what would be your take in that case?
I think there's some companies out there that try to put shackles on their employees in the sense of, hey, we want you to talk about this. And those companies, they don't get it. It's a privilege to have somebody on your team who is very active on social media. Yeah. I would say give them 100%. It's their brand. It's their personal brand. Don't try to force them to talk about your company. Don't try to force them to talk about your products, but rather just give them, an open space, and, be happy that they're sharing content, because the truth is, if it's a great place to work and they enjoy working about the company, then they're gonna naturally talk about it, right? And I think if your job is in sales and it's social selling, and you are trying to get new customers and new leads, through LinkedIn, then obviously there's companies like Dream Data who do an excellent job. They probably do something like a 40-40-20, and I'm guessing maybe 40% is about content that's personal. Maybe another 40% is something that's educational, and then maybe 20% is around, not salesy, but actually talking about their product, right? I think if you go more than 20%, I think the audience will get, tired of it. I think it's too much. And so there should be a good rule of thumb, a good playbook. It could be 40-40-20, or it could be, something like that, but never more than 20% of what you talk or write about should be promotional in terms of the products or services. And another good company or another good person that's trying to replicate the dream data model is Casey Hill. He's trying to do the same thing with Active Campaign. I think they just got started a couple of months ago, and I think he's already got a few employees that are being more active on LinkedIn talking about Active Campaign. I think he said something like within 2 months they've already got more than 400% impressions on their company page, and a lot of that has to do with just the people being more active on LinkedIn, not necessarily talking about Active Campaign all the time, but just being a lot more active. And I think that's what happens. I think I saw something where Nick Bennett, who's also very active on LinkedIn, he even said something like his company brought another, I don't know if it was something like $1 million or $2 million in pipeline revenue in the pipeline just from him being active on social media and on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And so even if you're not talking about your company, people check out your profile. They check out, what you do. They check out, what company you work for. And that's how they learn about the company, is by looking at your profile. And so if they're interested in you and if they like you, then obviously they're going to learn more about you, and they're going to learn about what the company is too. And I think that's worked for Dream Data and a few other people out there who are building their personal brand on LinkedIn.
That's brilliant, man. Brilliant advice. Brilliant advice. And for you, how social selling is, I don't like calling social selling, but being a creator. So you said that, it is being a creator in the end. And do you like Seth Godin, by the way? I think, have you read his stuff?
Yeah, I've read a few of his books, like The Blue Cow and some other things by Seth. Yeah. It's been a while since I read anything by him. But what about him?
It's just exactly what it's not social selling. It's, he says that we are all artists in a way. And what you do is expressing a form of art in your way with fun and interviewing internationals and startups. I'm trying to create my form of art. And it would be very, very challenging to find a company that, if I had to work for a company that would accept it. I think these companies are rare, like Dream Data, the way I see them executing and the folks you just mentioned. So it's really interesting what sort of opportunities we have once we start caring less in that sense, because that's also a mind game, right? Like, because for me, maybe that's something I would like to explore in this conversation, is like, how did you find your voice? That's typically a challenge for people, because, for example, I have never considered myself an e-com expert, but I can definitely talk about go-to-market strategies when it comes to international expansion and being an immigrant, and then combining those things. And hence the reason why I'm creating the Evolve Commerce Club, because I believe if you're selling high ACV SaaS software, it's all about people. Otherwise, you're going to be burning cash doing paid ads and Google and whatever it is, trying to capture demand, when there's definitely an avenue there with really interesting people who want to learn, but they want to be educated. They want insights, and they want the relationship first. So for me, it was a process to find my voice, and it wasn't easy, because I needed to cut the bullshit and say, okay, what can I actually talk about? And I had, you need to internalize all those things in your life as being, the content, if that makes sense,
It's so difficult. And I've made the mistake for years of talking about so many different topics or things, because for a while I was in e-commerce, and I was also talking about relationship building and networking, also talking about being a foreigner in remote work and being a foreigner in Europe, and also talking about parenting, because when you've got kids, it's really hard to try to juggle work and kids, and then side hustles. And so I was talking about multiple different topics, and just recently I made the decision to focus on one topic so I could be known for one thing. And that was the hardest thing. It's like, I don't want to just be known for one thing, right? And I hear all these experts say, no, you should focus on one thing. So I'm actually in the process of doing that right now. I'm only writing about or posting about podcasting, and try to be as helpful as I can. educating a lot of people or writing a lot of content about the different types of podcast ads that are available, and what's the difference between, or how many podcast episodes does the ordinary podcast get. And so I've got about 60 days worth of content that I'm going to be releasing, where I'm really just focused on podcasting, because I am trying to grow a business. And so I just want to focus on that one topic, and I'll let you know how it goes, but I'm very curious to see what the results will be, because I've never done anything like this. I've always posted about many different things that I've been doing, but I'm curious. I'm curious to see, where this leads, if I get any DMs, any leads, what my follower count's going to look like. And so I just started doing this last week, and I'm going to try to do it for 60 days straight. So I'll let you know how it goes. But the short answer is that it's very difficult to find your voice. I'm still in the process of trying to find it for myself.
Brilliant. I agree. It is very difficult. For me, it was trying to reverse engineer my life and seeing the things that I've been doing so far. So they are related or correlated with business development, international expansion, relationship building, and being a foreigner. So, and eventually you will see, because we have a side project also on LinkedIn. It started off with something like for Brazilians who live abroad, but again, it's about being a foreigner. But then I have the feeling that people get confused, so that's the reason why I post stuff in Portuguese, but I'm sure I can see sometimes that I lose followers, which is fine.
I've seen those posts, and I had to hit translate. I love that translate feature. That's probably, for me and you, that's probably like, the coolest feature in there, because we've got this network and friends who live in these different places, and Romanians who post something in Romanian, and I know them and I want to read what it's about, or, they're from somewhere else. But that's probably the best feature on LinkedIn, or the most, I guess you would say, underappreciated feature.
Yeah, but it's super useful.
Yeah.
Eric, 2 final questions. So the first question I'd like to ask, or the first final question, is, how does someone evolve? Because I have this thing here called Evolve, and it's a really broad question. So in your opinion, what makes someone evolve?
I think for me, for somebody to evolve, which also means to flourish, to grow, I think they have to understand what they want out of life. Because a lot of people, they don't know what they want. But if you know what you want out of life, right, and you're willing to put in the work to achieve that, then that work essentially is going to help you evolve. It's going to help you develop. It's going to help you change, right? And so I think that's the first thing, is just ask yourself, what do I want out of life? What do I want my life to look like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, down the road? And once you can answer that question, then willing to, execute on that, then you're naturally going to become a different person. Because in order to make your life, to be that life that you want, you're going to have to change as a person. You can't just say, okay, 10 years from now, I want to be living in $1 million house, and this is what my lifestyle to look, and achieve that by just doing the same things over and over and being the same person that you are. Right. So I think the first thing is you have to ask yourself, what do I want out of life?
Really nice. That's a $1 million question, or not, but breaking that down, there's the book from Jordan Peterson. He even has a framework to, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it's really nice.
No,
I'm not sure if you're into his stuff. I like it. There's actually, do you know Catalin Matei in Romania?
Catalin? Yeah, I think so. I think we're probably connected. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think his company works for the Jordan Peterson team, or used to. So yeah,
okay.
we spoke once about it. So anyways, I can send something over to you your way.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. He asks those hard questions and help you, break it down. And then final question. So what would you tell the Eric from 10 years ago, from a decade ago?
Oh, from a decade ago.
Yeah.
The first thing that pops in my mind is, hey, when you make all that money in the stock market in 2021, sell it.
All right. That's
Yeah,
the answer.
yeah. That's the first thing that popped into my mind. Yeah, human fallacy. You know, when you see something go up, you think it's just going to continue going up, and
Uh-huh.
when it starts like dropping, you think, ah, no, 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 it's going to rebound. Yeah, yeah. That was probably a big mistake, investing
Mhm.
mistake that I made a couple of years ago. But I think, 10 years. Here's the thing. I'm happy the person that I am now, but I'm also happy about the person I'm becoming. Um,
Mhm.
there's not too many big mistakes that I would want to try to change or avoid. 10 years ago, I think I got the interest in trying to be a professor or an adjunct professor, and so I pursued it. I pursued it and I made it happen. And so I've always been happy or content with the person that I've been. I would say the past 15 years. But if there's any words of wisdom that I can give myself, it'd probably be it would probably be um, what do you asking yourself that same question? What do you want out of your life? And then
Mhm.
backtrack and try to figure out how am I going to achieve that. That's something that I barely asked myself about a year ago, and it's played a major factor um, and my choices and how I see conducting my behavior and what I do on a daily basis, really for like the next 5 years, is because I really thought deep and hard what I want my life to look like, 4 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. And so I wish I could have asked myself that question a lot earlier.
That's brilliant, man. So, ladies and gents, this was Eric Melchor. Eric, if people want to find you, what's the best way? And yeah.
InnovatorsCanLaugh.com. There you can see more information about the B2B podcast ad network that I've launched. Also, you can find information about my podcast. I've interviewed over 100 startup founders from Europe, and you can see episodes from those interviews on the website.
You also have a newsletter, right? That people can sign up to.
Goes out every week. You can sign up on the website at InnovatorsCanLaugh.com. It's kind of a cool newsletter. Um, I try to put a smile on your face. So if the dad joke got you in the beginning of this interview, then I think you'll like the newsletter. Do you get it? Do you get the newsletter? Do
Yeah,
you,
I'm
okay.
there, man.
All right.
Every
All right.
week, I see. It's is it Tuesdays or Thursdays? I don't remember. Something like that.
Thursdays. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Thursdays.
Substack newsletter.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Cool. All right, Eric. Thanks so much, man. It was great, and yeah, we'll do something else soon. You're also going to the community now.
All right. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Carlos. Thanks for having me on the show.
Awesome. So just a moment and stream. Cool.